First, I just wanted to thank Tim for hosting this event. Love the venue. I'm a Marine, so definitely appreciate being here at the Marine Memorial Club. I'm a partner at Task Force X Capital, TFX for short, based in Charlotte, North Carolina. We are focused on backing veteran founders who are starting companies that are B2B. There are a couple of industry areas that we're focused on, but we'll invest in any B2B company that we can get conviction around. But because of the founders we're hunting for, they tend to be in kind of 5 areas. Cybersecurity being one of them, security, defense tech, healthcare IT, and fintech. We're early, so we're typically focused on seed stage opportunities. We will do Series A. The name of the firm is Task Force X, so the idea is we roll up our sleeves and we get involved with the founders. We activate our network to help them accelerate their success.
And one of our panelists tomorrow, Stephen Lee Crowds, is a TFX-backed company.
That's right. Very locally.
Hi, my name is Sherman Williams. I'm a partner at AIN Ventures. So we are a early seed, pre-seed stage fund. We invest at the intersection of dual use and deep tech. That does not have to be a veteran, but we have a whole other portion of our investment thesis where we're solely interested in investing in veteran-led startups. When it comes to dual use and deep tech, there are 3 main areas that we focus on: space technology, sustainability technology, and healthcare technology. When it comes to veterans, we are industry agnostic though, but we do have a strong software bias. I'm based in New York City, but I do spend a lot of time in California. My co-founder, Emily, she's here in the crowd. She's in the DC metro area. And yeah, that's us.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Mike Sherbakov. Great to be on stage with some great peers, some people we co-invest with. And Tim, thank you and the Context team for putting this together. Always a really great event. As I mentioned, my name is Mike Sherbakov. I'm based in San Diego. I'm the general partner at the Veteran Fund. We're an early stage venture capital fund. We like to be first check-in. We invest in the pre-seed and seed stage of, we like to say, tech-centric, industry agnostic, although we have a lean towards dual use and national security and defense tech. We want to see a veteran or someone from the military community, a military spouse, on the leadership team. That's part of our investment thesis. And kind of our sweet spot is we have roughly 50 venture partners from different industries, exited founders. We lean on our venture partners who are experts in cyber or dual use and help them navigate that non-dilutive funding process, and leaning on our venture partner expertise. Happy to be here.
Hey, Tim. Great job. Seriously. I mean, a lot of people here. Feels like a little bit of a family reunion, looking out and seeing all these faces, seeing Bob Eisenbringer walk in, Catherine Webster, Vets in Tech, supporting my Vets in Tech t-shirt today, advising. So I'm Craig Cummings with Moonshot's Capital. My business partner is Kelly Perdue, who some of you know. I met Kelly in 2005 when I was teaching on the faculty at West Point, and he had just won season 2 of The Apprentice, and I got assigned the additional duty, no kidding, Cummings, go get Purdue, bring him back to West Point to speak. So Kelly and I celebrate our 18th friendversary this month. So we're great business partners, and I only call that out because you do want to look at the teams that are backing you, just the same way that we look at the co-founders and see how they get along. You ought to be looking at the VCs and how they're doing. So Kelly and I have made about 108 investments in the aggregate, and we're in our Fund 3 right now, Moonshot's Capital Fund 3. We have about $225 million under management. We're usually writing checks $1 million to $2.5 million for a 10% ownership stake. That's usually our sweet spot. But we are proverbially barbelling. We're being opportunistic. So if you're going into an A, B, or C round, we will throw a $2 million check into one of those rounds. Usually that's from the 108 companies that we've backed, so we have access and allocation. We're not a vet-only fund. We're both West Point grads and Army vets, and so the GPs are vets, but we back about 36% of our companies in the aggregate have a veteran on the founding team. So we love that DNA for all the same reasons that all of you love that DNA. But we've also organically over-indexed with women and people of color. And about a third of our deals have a person of color on the founding team. And about, right now, I think we're about 18% have a woman on the founding team. And so what we've come to learn, and I think everyone in this room would agree, like that same resilience, grit, failure's not an option, had to work sort of 3 to 5x harder to get in the room to pitch us. That's what we see in vets, women, and people of color. So organically become this diverse fund. We're agnostic with the exception of we don't do anything in health tech or biotech. We just don't know that ecosystem well enough. But otherwise, we look at the founding team, and our thesis is we invest in extraordinary leadership. And I think all of us in here know that nothing's more important to the leadership, to the success of a company than its leadership. And then we look at the market opportunity, which needs to be, massive. And then we look at how our networks can support you and what you're doing. So interestingly, at the end of the day, the answer sort of reveals itself. Like when you start to line them all up, and we're all of us up here in the business of saying no, generally. We're only backing about 0.3% of the companies. I mean, just so you understand what it's like on this side of the table. In Fund 2, we had 5,901 deals that we triaged, and we invested in 15. So that's just, I only say that not to freak you out, but to show you, do everything you can to get our attention. And then, as Tim said, create the FOMO, because FOMO pretty much powers everything in life, to include investors. So anyway, we always want to see the deal. So Craig at Moonshot's Capital always send. We all want to see the deal, and then we'll decide from there. Don't make a direct intro. Send us the pitch deck. Then ask us if we want the intro, if you don't mind. Anyway, I took too much mic time on that. Thanks again, Tim. Great to be here with all of you.
All right, well, Derren Burrell, Veteran Ventures Capital, and Tim, once again, thanks for putting this on. If this is a family reunion, then Craig's the dad. He's been around a lot longer than most of everybody else. Although TFX and Hivers and Strivers have been here for a while too. And then there's the rest of us that are truly those new fund managers. But super excited. What we do is, like Craig also said, our partnership goes back 20 years, even though this is our first fund. But we have, what we've done is built up this ecosystem. We invest in veteran-owned, veteran-led businesses solely. And basically, drilling down a little deeper, national security and defense, security, logistics, aerospace, those types of verticals, because a lot of our GP are veterans and veterans that were in the space of contracting and procurement, so we can kind of help get them inroads into the government and possibly non-dilutive funding as well. So we've deployed $5 million thus far, but we've generated at least double that in governmental initiatives too to help those companies continue to grow and scale. We look for typically post-revenue, Series A-ish is where we play mostly, deploying upwards of $1 million, give or take $1 in the first round, but also reserving capital for follow-on. And so basically what everybody's saying up here is true. It's a tough road, but it's one that we all want to see be successful. We've co-invested with several firms up here as well, because we know as a collective this group can really do some powerful things. And what we really want to do, at least one of my hopes, is to see military service become the gateway to entrepreneurship. I know that's Bunker Labs. I know that's a lot of what people up here are doing. And the way we do that is we make our investors money. And then that helps them kind of see the pathway that military service can do. So, yeah, appreciate it again.
Yeah, hey guys, Hivers and Strivers. My name is Rachel Hobert. I'm a partner over there. We are two GPs, Doug Doan and Randy Beardsworth. We've been around kind of Since 2011, we also have our 2 associates, if you meet them, Matt Work and Ben Minden, 2 great guys as well. Encourage you to get to know them, meet them. So we do things a little bit differently. Kind of, first and foremost, we are exclusively vets. We back vets, that's all we do. If you're not a military veteran, kind of in an ownership structure of the company, we won't consider you. Excuse me. And number 2 is that we're not really interested in being a $100 million fund. We're a small kind of vet-led passion fund. That's really what we do, and that's our sweet spot, and that's where we really want to stay focused. We've deployed now that said, we've deployed $70 million kind of over the last 5 years. You'll meet, we've got Scott Patterson over there of Tumble. We've got Matt over, we just invested in Square Dash. Nick Mastrononi. We've got 10 or 11 of our different entrepreneurs here. And we're really, really quite proud of them. So yeah, and so with that, we're not fundraising. We're really focused on getting those returns. Right now we're at about 5x, 50% IRR, and we really truly believe military vets are an underappreciated, underfunded asset class. That's why we invest in you guys. And yeah, and we're really proud of what we've built and what we're growing. And really with Hivers and Strivers, our edge is our LP network. We've brought in incredible LPs, and they are the reason why we have been successful. So with this LP network that we have cultivated over the last 5 years, so we don't sit on boards. We put our LPs on boards. They're the ones, since we are industry agnostic, we find an LP in our network that knows your industry and knows how, has been there, done that, been that entrepreneur. And our LPs tend to have some type of military affiliation, either in the family or they themselves have served, and have done very successful as being an entrepreneur. And they really bring the value to the company. And so that's what Hivers really, we want to be the most valuable line item on your cap table. So, and we do that by mobilizing this LP network. And so to give an example, we have a company who was trying to get into Amazon and sell into Amazon, and we've got a few of the C-suite kind of founding team of Amazon as LPs. So they were kind of struggling getting up through the food chain of Amazon, and they call us up and they're like, hey, is there anything that we can do? So we call up one of our guys and we said, hey, like, a company is like kind of stalled out. We're really not quite sure whether or not you want us. If it's a no, if Amazon is not interested in this product, tell us and just let us know. So the guy's like, okay, hold up. Like, I'll give you, like, give me 10 minutes and I'll call you back. And sure enough, 10 minutes later, he's like, yeah. So I'm like, hey, like, by the way, like, where are you? And he's like, oh, I'm in Florence. I'm with Andy Jassy. Like, we're sitting here. And I let him know. And Monday morning, 8 a.m., the guys called us up and like, holy crap, what did you just do? Like, Amazon is like, we're now getting emails from him. We haven't heard from him in months. Like, what's going on? And we're like, hey, look, like, we're just here to open up the door and give you a warm intro. And that's what we do at Hivers. And that's, and then from there, it's up to you to perform. And kind of, and deliver, and not fuck it up. So anyways, what's really interesting, so a little bit about me is I don't come from a military background. This is all new to me. And watching the network really mobilize for military veterans has been, our network and how fierce you guys are for each other is incredible to me. And I love it, and I am honored and grateful to be a part of what is going on here today, because you guys truly are, you guys are going to drive better returns for funds that, we were institutional capital, like, right, we have to fundraise ourselves. And I want institutional capital to be begging to invest in our funds because they know that you guys are going to outperform all of your peers. And really, that's our thesis. That's why we're here. and we've seen it working. I mean, Black Rifle Coffee came out last February and IPO'd and went public, and that was a $1 billion company. And now this conference really is all about how do we get more wins on the board and $1 billion companies. And once we kind of start that flywheel, we're really going to start to see a lot of capital flow into this specific sector. And so with that, though, we also know who we are and we know who we're not. If you're just looking for capital, we're not the go-to. And even VC, if you're not looking for VC money might not be right for you. So you want to make it a win-win scenario in a partnership. And with that being said, a few other notes. With us, what we do, we provide a network for other entrepreneurs to get together. So Andrew Commendo, who's in this room, leads the network of our entrepreneurs. So figuring out like compensation and lawyers and all that, I mean, we can suggest things, but it's best if it comes from your peers, kind of, hey, how'd you do this? Hey, how'd you do that? So we bring our entrepreneurs together. We've got 16, I think now, 16 entrepreneurs together. And then on top of that, we are formed and building an incredible partnership with PenFed. Scott Davis in the back runs a program called VEEP. Really highly suggest it. It's an incredible kind of incubator program. It doesn't cost you're not giving up 6% of your company to go do it. It's free. And it really just kind of gives you solid fundamentals as you're starting the business. And so, that's a little bit about us, and I'll leave it to Q&A for Tim.
Cool. I want to riff off what some of the speakers said. This will take 3 minutes to go through about 8 points. The first is, this was brought up in the last panel, bootstrapping is absolutely an option. I bootstrapped a company, and that's the only way I am able to do a venture fund. If I had investors, they'd be like, what are you doing? And so for those that are bootstrapping, that is absolutely an option. Another option that's associated with bootstrapping is Hivers. So there's a number of people from AFWorks, and so they're in the audience. I highly encourage, if you're looking to do Hivers, to talk with them. And then second is, I'm glad, Rachel, you brought up PenFed, Scott Davis. Can you raise your hand, Scott? So they have an amazing program to help veteran entrepreneurs. They don't take a dilution of capital. They simply just help veteran entrepreneurs grow their companies. A number of folks here that are founders have gone through that program, and highly recommend you all connect with them. The next is, it's a small group, this group right here. So Doug Doan started Hivers and Strivers. He actually invested in Craig Cummings' company, Ride Scout, and so, and then Craig's, one of his best friends was my TAC officer at West Point. Like, practically, there's like less than 6 degrees. There's few degrees between all of us. Craig brought up a great point around diversity. We are trying our best to have a diverse panel, and we're trying our best in terms of not just women, but people of color, enlisted and officer. We are doing our best. I'm sure we're not going to meet everyone's expectations, so I just want to apologize there. But I promise you we're trying to do our best collectively. And Craig, thank you for highlighting that. The next is, we're trying to rotate speakers too. So we had a number of VCs last year, and we're trying to rotate it every other year. There are a number of phenomenal veteran VCs here. Lenore's here from First In. There's Wes of Booz Allen. A number of great veteran VCs that if you're looking to fundraise, it's not just us. There's a burgeoning class of us. The next is, we try to do every quarterly a veteran VC coalition. There's probably at least 5 to 7 veteran VCs that show up for office hours. If you go to the website, veteranvcs.org, you can sign up for office hours with us. And then for the veteran VCs here, I want this event to be valuable to you all. So please join us tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. There's an institutional LP GP session. Some of you all joined today, but hopefully you all join tomorrow. Ben Black of Acadian, Chris Duvas of Ahoy Capital, and Sylvia Kleinley of JP Morgan Asset Management. The last note that I quickly want to say before I have a question is, I'm not trying to feign humbleness. I actually try to be humble because I know I'm going to disappoint people. And that's the one thing that I kind of like, I would say, if there's one thing that keeps me up at night is disappointing a veteran entrepreneur. And so we are going to disappoint you all. I'm sure we've said no to a lot of you all, and so that's a hard thing, but I worry sometimes when we don't provide you all feedback, and I know we've done that at Context. And so that's why when people are like, oh, good job, Tim, I'm like, no, there's someone in this crowd, if not 5, who are like, man, Tim did not follow up with me, he wasn't good with feedback, and guilty as charged. All right, now with the question. A good friend who's in the audience wanted me to ask this question for all of you all. As the wars have ended in Iraq and Afghanistan, do you think there will be a material shift in composition of future veteran entrepreneurs? Education, skill set, motivations, desires. Maybe going a level deeper, and it's hard to ask this in a public forum without sounding like an asshole. Will fewer rock stars opt into the military in lieu of a more traditional career because there is no perceived war or need? For example, the 18X program attracted a lot of enlisted persons with 4-year degrees. Does this stop? And if that stops, then are there fewer entrepreneurs in the making to start companies 3 to 5 years from now? Over.
So Tim, to really, or what that person asking is, do we think that the veteran entrepreneur landscape is going to change within 3 to 5 years? Is that what you're basically asking?
Yes, because the nature of we're no longer necessarily deploying and there's no like persistent conflict like Afghanistan and Iraq. Are we basically going to see different types of veteran entrepreneurs in the next few years?
I think what we've seen over the past 70 years shows that it does not matter what conflict is going on. What we have are the skill set and the traits that we learn in austere environments. It is perfect for entrepreneurship. It doesn't matter what's going on in the world. You know, we're trying to create Fred Smiths, okay, from FedEx or U-Haul or, you know, pick any of the big companies. You know, what was it, 60% of all Fortune publicly traded companies in the 80s had a veteran leading them. There wasn't a war going on, you know, Cold War. That's about it. I don't think that it matters one iota. What it matters is when you have that mindset that the veteran does of adaptability, which the private sector calls pivoting. You did that your whole career, right? You got awesome opportunities to mess with technology when you're in. You got great educational opportunities. All of these things, you come out of the service, whether that's been 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years, you have the same skill set as a Fortune 500 CEO. You just don't have the same level playing field because you don't have the network that Blake was talking about. And so we need to bridge that gap, access to network and access to capital. That's why we're here. That's the big change, I think, is that the veteran is going to stand the test of time. Doesn't matter what's going on. It's just an opportunity gap that we're trying to bridge up here.
I'd love to piggyback off what Derren said because I think it's spot on. It's our core thesis at the Veteran Fund is we think that the skills and leadership traits developed in service translate well to the business world. And I think it's only going to continue to grow, but it comes down to the resources available to the veterans. So when I did my introduction, I didn't mention the other 3 general partners that are part of this fund. Ryan Micheletti, if you don't all know him, you need to meet him. Is Ryan in the room? Okay, he's probably taking a call, probably talking to a founder. He has been integral in starting and leading the kind of veteran founder ecosystem. And I think it comes down to resources. I know when I got out of the Marines and went to college, I wanted to explore entrepreneurship, but I felt like there weren't a lot of resources out there. And based on what Tim's putting together and Catherine at VetTech and Ryan at Founder Institute, more and more resources are coming online. We have a number of founders, as I look around the room, that have gone through the program that Ryan and I lead at Founder Institute. But it's more so, I think, absolutely an increase in veteran entrepreneurship based on an availability of resources. And as resources come online, more venture capital firms come online, more capital becomes available. And to kind of speak on a meta level, we believe veterans kind of possess these 3 core traits of leadership, resilience, and purpose. And I don't know what all of your individual thoughts are on COVID, but it was very challenging for a lot of people. I see it as this blessing. I call it kind of this great reset, in that people paused for a moment and took an inventory and actually had the moment to ask themselves, what do I actually want to do with my life? Maybe they got laid off. Maybe they, for whatever reason, they just paused. And I think as people start asking that question of what do I actually care about, what's my purpose, what do I want to do, a lot of that ends up leading down the path of entrepreneurship and building something that matters to them, solving a real problem that they care about. And so I think it's only going to continue to grow, not even linearly, exponentially at this point, especially as more great people come together, coalitions start existing, collaboration, co-investing, and all these great resources that come online.
Just to add to that, I think with the growing threats from China and Russia, the exposure to technology is exponentially increasing in the military as well. So while I don't think the leadership skills and experience that those that serve get in the military is going to change, they're going to have even greater exposure to technology, more familiarity with it. So I think it's a great time. I think you know, this room is a testament to how things are changing. I think it's only going to change for the better.
I want to make sure we have questions from entrepreneurs or from the audience. Any questions? Sir.
Even though he's Air Force and I'm Army, but I'm a paratrooper, so we have a special relationship with the Air Force. We consider them a free, a free large male rights here program. But anyway, question I have is, I know you're in venture capital, so does it help to be disabled certified as a venture capital company? How many of them are there in your industry? And is it an advantage being disabled vet certified in the venture capital field?
I would say that if I can answer that question in a couple ways, because Veteran Ventures Capital is a service-disabled, veteran-owned venture capital fund. Did that help me raise money? I don't think so. Okay, so I think this is kind of a little bit broader, as we as veterans haven't always done a very good job explaining our value add to the civilian private enterprise, if you will. Because for the first 6 months that I was raising our fund, I had to convince people it wasn't a nonprofit. You know, because, oh, you're helping out veterans, that's great. I was like, no. The veterans are going to make you a lot of money. You just need to invest in them. And that took a while for that to set. And I think that the service-disabled, veteran-owned can be really beneficial when you're competing for government contracts. In fact, we certainly highlight several of our portfolio companies that are doing that. So it's a great avenue to get into governmental issues. But as far as did it help us with a fundraise? It may have helped me get in the door with a couple of times, but it never closed an LP, at least not to my knowledge. So I don't know if anyone else has similar.
Well, I would say when I do a roll call and I think about some of our early stage investments like Red 6 and Blake Hall and Gretel, IDB, Jake Wood, Groundswell, Chris Hu with the Zebo, like zero of those have had any uplift. In fact, it can actually, because there's rules for that, like around the management and the structure of it, around the percentage ownership, as the cap table, as you go to in the future financing rounds, you're going to break through it, and you're going to violate it. You can't even do it. Is it important in the grand scheme? Yeah. I mean, I don't see a lot for VC-backed companies, but if you have that option, if you can designate yourself as such, I don't see any downside minus having to convince people you're not a nonprofit. So I wouldn't spend. We don't go. It's not part of our checklist. Like, are they service disabled? No.
Waco Hoover with Vet TV. My question is, scale is a relative thing, and all VCs have a minimum threshold for if you're going to write a check in a company. This is a question for the panel. I'm curious for each of you, is it 100 million, 500 million? You mentioned BRCC, $1 billion. I'm just curious where you guys kind of sit in the spectrum for focus.
I'll just quickly share. Obviously, every firm is different depending on the stage that they're investing in and the industry. For us, the general lens at which we look through is, do we believe the company has the potential to 100x from where it is? Granted, we're investing at the pre-seed stage. We're looking at probably 5 to 10 caps at the most. A book I recommend on this for any founder that hasn't read it is The Secrets of Sand Hill Road by Scott Kupor. I highly recommend, just because it's advice for founders, but through the lens of a VC. I think the moment a founder actually puts themselves in the shoes of a VC and gets it, oh, they have a fiduciary responsibility to their LPs, it makes a lot of sense. And the way you pitch, the way you talk to investors changes, but that's for us generally. So we want to see them, at that $1 billion valuation plus.
Yeah, so for us at AIN, we're the entry point. I think you were asking about the entry point of the company that we want to get in. We want to get in at $15 million or less. So we're very early as far as our entry point. And I second what he said as far as the returns that we are seeking. And once you put yourself in the shoes of the VC, you can better understand if it makes sense to take capital from us or not, because that capital comes with many expectations.
Hey, my name is Kosh Kumar. I'm in the Army Reserves. I started on the founding journey just 4 months ago, so I'm a baby here in front of everybody else. My question is, how do you guys determine as investors what level of traction a founder needs before you take the person seriously and like, okay, we want to meet this person?
It depends, I guess. It really depends on the industry you're in. Obviously, revenue is a clear signal that you're gaining traction, even just a little bit. But there are other measurements in terms of, in the consumer space, attracting users, or even the enterprise space. If you start with kind of a freemium model that's trying to get folks in a certain department to start using it, those are helpful metrics. But I think it really depends on the industry you're in and the technology that you're building. Revenue is usually the easiest one, though.
I would say for pre-revenue companies, a good trope is founder market fit. And so what we're trying to assess, so we invest in people who have zero traction, right? We will consider them. But first of all, is the market big enough, right? So that they don't have to win greater than, let's say, 5 or 10% of the market in order to be a very large company, in line with what Mike was talking about. And then are you, from a founder market fit perspective on the founder side of the house, are you uniquely positioned via your background, experience, whatever have you, to attack and win in that market to some degree, right? That's what you're really looking at, that founder market fit.
And I'll just quickly add, just like the advice I previously gave on, like, if you put yourself in the shoes of the investor, the VC, we like to say at the Veteran Fund that we need to see an MVP with some type of demonstrable traction. Well, the most common question is, well, what is that traction that you're talking about? And the answer is it depends, because it's industry specific, right? So if you're B2B SaaS, it's a little bit easier. You're looking at certain monthly active users, of course, revenue, but then there are certain like deep tech companies that you're looking at, or hardware companies that are much more capital intensive, and you're looking for what does their pipeline look like, what do contracts look like. So it depends, but I want to be more specific in, again, put yourself in our shoes and say, how can I increase confidence and mitigate risk the best that I can? How do I essentially show them the best that I can? Like, that there's a there, that I'm the founder and we're the team to do this, and to Sherman's point, that there's really a big enough market that's attractive for the investor to get that, again, at our stage, 100x potential on where they are today. Any way you can do that, by being maybe a second-time founder and saying, I've done this before, having really in-depth industry expertise in whatever you're building, right? Having, like, traction shows up in many different ways, but think of it as increasing confidence for us.
Okay, they're forcing me to talk. I think it goes hand in hand with the earlier question, like what Mike said, right? So when we're getting pitched, we see hockey sticks all day long, right? We know it's like, hey, I'm gonna be 100x, 500x, like this is what I'm gonna be. And for us, it comes down to the person, right? Person first and foremost. I mean, that's why we invest in military vets. Who you are, how you're gonna get there, the team you're gonna build, the humility you're gonna have in building that company. I mean, talent is a huge part of building solid companies. And so we've had a guy who has come to us with pretty much an idea on a napkin. And he asked for capital, and we're like, oh, he's got enough there. We think he can do it. just from seeing his traits as a entrepreneur. And sure enough, he went out and he hit milestone after milestone after milestone and built an incredible team. And he turned to me one day and was like, Rachel, I am the dumbest one in this room, and I am the CEO. Like, that's how we knew he built a great team. And he had the humility to build that team. So I guess to the traction part, we were kind of all over the spectrum, and it comes down to the person. And then the hockey stick for what we're looking for, be within your realm of realistic, right? Don't say, hey, I'm a $50 million company pre-revenue, and this is what I've got, and this is, it's like, hey, like, at least be a little realistic and have some facts behind what you're saying and why you're saying it, and frankly, like, the market nowadays in 2023, there's just been a lot of people who had to get it so right. Their valuations, they had to hit certain benchmarks to be this round, and now we're seeing a bunch of down rounds because they didn't factor in that margin of error. And so just understanding the realm that you're playing in and being realistic.
Asher Fink, CEO of Get Renovation, and I hope it's okay if I poll the room. So what number of people, just by show of hands, were commissioned officers in the military? Okay. And then by show of hands, non-commissioned officers? Okay, I'm surprised. I'm just wondering if you see a similar ratio to what you saw in the room, and if it has an impact on your investment thesis and the kinds of people you invest in.
I'm a civilian. I can't tell the difference.
I'll jump in real quick. Hivers and Strivers, they backed Black Rifle. Evan Hafer is an enlisted Army guy, and potentially like one of the most successful military veteran exits of late. I sometimes will say we don't care if they're black, blue, green, yellow, red, 2 legs, no legs. And so like enlisted or officer really doesn't matter to us. But I'll let the other audience, panelists chime in.
Well, to echo Rachel, you know, I'm an officer and I can't tell the difference today. So we would back anybody that has the characteristics that are going to make that business successful.
At AIN, it doesn't matter to us whatsoever. Our last investment here, sitting here, David Kervin, non-commissioned officer Marine, that was our last investment. So we take any and all.
Yeah, TFX is the same. I think the ratios that we just saw are similar to kind of what we see in our pitches, but it doesn't matter to us. We back officer and enlisted.
Hello, everybody. My name's Lucas. In terms of pitching, I was just curious to see, you know, what were some things that stood out from you amongst like some of the portfolio companies you invested in, and yeah, just best advice for pitching.
I'll jump in quickly and say, you can imagine we hear a lot of pitches, and especially in addition to, like, for example, at the Veteran Fund, myself and Ryan, we run Founder Institute, so we see founders and startups all day long. So to that point, again, the easiest thing is put yourself in our shoes and say, all right, if this investor is seeing all of these pitches, how do I stand out? And standing out can be one of many ways, right? Again, being an extraordinary founder that's incredibly knowledgeable about what it is that you're building, having a really unique solution, right? Telling me, like, educating me on a certain market that I may not know about. But in general, like, there has to be something that makes you stand out, not just I'm creating a better widget of some sort. And it's hard to explain what it is, but usually, like, there's that X factor. There's something, a certain feeling you have, and I know we as partners, and we bring it to our investment committee, usually there's like kind of one person pounding on the table saying, like, there's something about this, we need to take a deeper look. So On that note, I want to share something very tangible because it sounds like there are a lot of early stage founders in the room, so it's not just a bunch of VCs up here talking. Like something very, very tangible that I hope you all take away is, first of all, be very strategic in who you're reaching out to. Yes, it's a numbers game, but you should be vetting the VCs as much as they're vetting you, making sure that you're having the right conversations and using your time wisely. And every conversation you have, I know we teach this at Founder Institute, we also do it at Techstars, like at the end of every conversation, ask them two things. One, even if it's not a fit for them, because they'll probably say, oh, you know, I'll take a look at it. And maybe if they're a little more direct and straightforward, they'll tell you it's not a fit right away. Ask them if there's anyone else they know that could be a good fit and if they're willing to make introductions. I will say oftentimes if they're not investing, they just won't because we kind of have to focus on our portfolio companies. But the second and most important thing is ask everyone you talk to, can I please add you to my investor updates? Like paperstreet.vc is a great resource for this. It gives you a really simple format. Not enough founders do this. Preferably monthly, at the minimum quarterly. Send out investor updates that just tell us accomplishments, wins, asks. And we've had companies that I talked to for the first time and it's a no for us. And then I'm seeing their updates month after month. And then 6 months later, when they reach back out, I already know what they've been doing because I just glance over their updates. So it's massively underrated. Please, if you're a founder, send updates to everyone you've talked to, but get permission from them first.
I'll jump in here, and maybe I'll flip this a little bit. I'll tell you something you don't want to do. And this happened in September last year, was taking a pitch, and I said, how's the fundraise going? And the founder, Navy, no offense for what's coming, said, well, you know, we started this, you know, late June, July, and I realized that was a really bad idea because all the VCs were up in Napa Valley or Martha's Vineyard, and we weren't going to get their attention. And, you know, in a way that may have been like, oh, like I'm complimenting you because you can do these things, but I was like, no, I was grinding my ass off fundraising last summer. And so, like, we do, when we look at the relationship, we're like, we're going to be married to this founder for like 5 to 10 years. Married, air quote here. So not only is it what you see in the pitch, and I like what Sherman said around founder, market fit, right, and the passion, but we have to like sort of feel like this relationship is going to be good for both of us. So it's not only the pitch, it's the email, it's how you're talking to us, it's how you're talking to the team, and then we're also, you know, the best thing about investing in vets is vets can vet vets. One phone call, say, we're about to go on a foxhole with that vet, and all of us give very honest answers, right? So that, actually, I think that's a real advantage. We don't like to, like, sugarcoat our opinions of our fellow vets. We want to, you know, and so thank you for all that feedback. So anyway, it's kind of like a full picture, I guess is what I'm saying, beyond just the pitch.
Yeah, if I could, real quick on that too, is I got to piggyback on what Craig has said. We all talk to each other, and we also value each other's opinion. Okay, when Scout Ventures says I'm investing in this, you ought to consider it. That's followed up with an investment memo that's discussing back and forth, and then we can kind of reciprocate. We all talk. When I find out, oh, Stony Lonesom's in there, okay, that helps the credibility factor, right? Oh, Veep, you've gone through the Veep program? Then that is a huge boon to where you're at. So, you know, there's an ecosystem here, and it's small, but it's growing, and you got to be a part of that ecosystem. You got to be out there attending some of the things that, like this conference, to show us that you know, that you're around, and when I ask around, like Craig does too, that we get the honest feedback of, yes, they pitched, we passed because of this. Oh, okay, well, then we can kind of help direct them. If they're too early for us, then maybe we can pass them over to the veteran fund that does a little bit earlier stage than we do. So it's a big ecosystem that if you impress one of us, you impress all of us, because it's an opportunity for us to kind of share deals, diversify ourselves, and also help vet, you know, across the collective.
Hey. So I'm Scott Patterson, founder of Tumble. So side note, everyone on this stage has said no to me at one point. One of them invested, half of them are kicking themselves, and one of them rents office space from me. So I wanted to shift this a little bit, with the with your fundraising climate right now, some of the missteps in governance, runaway valuations that we saw, lovely inflation related and free capital. What are some of the terms that are kind of coming down the pipeline? How do we return to normal valuations, which I know a lot of you never really got away from? And what should we expect as we start to maybe see some economic recovery and recovery in the venture capital space?
I think on the topic of valuation, it's good to see you. I'm glad to hear you're doing so well. On the valuation question, I think you're seeing a lot of investors decide to kind of kick that can down the road a little bit. So we're seeing a lot more safes and convertible notes that have valuation caps just because investors and founders can't seem to come to terms on a price round, at least at the earliest stages. So I think that discussion is continuing, and we're seeing founders realize that if they're doing a price round to get it done, they're going to have to adjust their expectations a little bit because investors are just in a little bit different mindset nowadays when it comes to that.
I would say there's too many variables to cover in this time frame, but that's what this network is about. The Veteran Information Network, it's both the VCs, but also other entrepreneurs that have had successful raises, successful exits. One of your portcos, I saw Greg Adams, shout out to him, just walked in, and hit us up. If you think a term is funny or off, please contact us. That's what this network is about. Just ask us a question. We'll let you know if that's BS or not. For AI specifically, we're $15 million or less, so it just kind of works out. We're hard and fast on that for this fund. Per the check size we can write, we don't have that problem. It's not an issue for us with respect to valuation. So, yeah.
So we passed, but I was still helpful, right, Scott? All right. I mean, I looked at the debt, we talked. All right, just wanted to be clear.
So I think you kind of answered it a minute ago, but you brought up, both sides of the panel brought up FOMO, and, sorry, Mike, you kind of brought up sending out the investor updates. Could you kind of maybe walk through, like, how you build that FOMO without coming off as a total and complete prick? Because, like, you don't want to pit people against each other, but that's kind of what you're trying to do, just like a sale.
Yeah, how to build FOMO without being a hypocrite, is that what you're saying? I'm just a fan.
Being a prick. Like for like a founder trying to create that FOMO, but not come across as a prick too. So y'all that are.
Yeah, I love that the founders that were just on the panel before this said, like, at the end of the day, like, you don't waver, like, integrity, honesty, like, these are things that just don't change, right? You can be creative as a founder, take some creative liberties and everything. But at the end of the day, like, that's if someone asks me, like, what's been the most surprising thing about being a VC, it's like the amount that we get lied to be honest. Like, founders are like, for whatever reason, they feel like they have to tell this incredible story, whereas when we start looking under the hood, it's a very different story. I would rather, right off the bat, just tell me where you're at so I can actually point you in the direction of helpful resources or tell you if you're worth it. And just because it's maybe a not right now, that doesn't mean never. And so I think, like, this is just my personal ethos. It's like, just be honest with where you are. Like, don't try to build FOMO. Let the FOMO, like, if there is that, like, let it build naturally because you're actually building something meaningful, because there's the there. Because, like, for me, just the whole FOMO cycle and hype, like, it eventually that bubble bursts, and everyone that was part of it is like, what did we do? We just woke up from this fog. I would much rather invest in, again, great founders, like durable revenue business, like a solid business model, great market, and just the basic, it's like fundamentals. The way I personally look at everything, the way we look at everything at the Veteran Fund is we're long. Again, we're marrying someone. We're in it for 10 plus years at a minimum. So, like, let's not BS each other. Let's just be honest from the get-go. That's my opinion.
We have run out of time. I'm going to make 3 comments in about 2 minutes, and then I highly encourage entrepreneurs to meet with all these fund managers and the other fund managers in the room. First is, a lot of us are also entrepreneurs. We are starting new funds, and we have to be just as scrappy. When people say Martha's Vineyard and Napa, I'm like, where? Like, I've never been to those places. Second is, Scott, at least I'm revenue generating for you. And Scott, you can see the August time locks. I come in weekends, 5 a.m., 6 a.m., so you know I'm working just as hard as you are. Next is, yes, there's veteran VCs here, but you're gonna have to raise some civilians. Like, if you aggregated all of our assets under management, it does not cover all the needs of this room by 1%. Like, you will have to engage with civilians, and I know I've said this thematically once, but I'm gonna say it continuously, we need civilian allies. So the more there are civilian VCs here, and the more there are civilian LPs here, the more we're gonna win as a community. Over.